Okay, so we're going to talk about measurement a little bit because in pharmacy, there's a lot of movement in converting between different systems in the pharmacy. And that being said, I'm going to say this. The metric system, the US and throughout the world is using this system as the standard for pharmaceutical and medical calculations. So I'm going to spend the majority of my time talking about the metric system, and then after this instruction video, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of math and show you how to convert in the within the metric system, and then from the metric system into the other two systems that I'm going to talk about today. But the three primary units, and I want you to look right here, is these units here. This means it's kind of like at the 0 point. So meters is what we measure length in, which we're not going to use in pharmacy. You would use it in medical when you're measuring the length of a baby or something like that, or height, but we aren't really using that in pharmacy. So we really use liters, which is the measurement of volume, and grams, which is the measurement of weight. So those are the primary units. And then the subunits would be something like kilo, centi, milli, micro. Those are your subunits. So a decimal system meaning that each primary unit is subdivided by multiples of 10. So we start with grams, and then if we multiply it by something, you're going to get kilograms, centi, milo, micro. The prefix of the primary unit indicates what segment of that unit is being considered. So for example, there are like 16 different segments in the metric system, like deca, hecca. I think there's some saying out there, something about kings, somebody drank chocolate milk or something. We are going to focus on these four. We're actually probably going to focus on three. I don't know that we'll use centi much. We use that in medical when we're measuring height. But we will, in pharmacy, we're going to use kilo, kilograms, milligrams, micrograms, or grams. Those are the ones we're going to use. So how do all these prefixes and primaries relate to pharmacy? So let's take a little bit of a look at this. So the metric system and the abbreviations encountered frequently every day are these. I want you to write these down. I want you to know them. I want you to know grams is our 0 point and liter is our 0 point for weight and volume. And then milligrams is 1,000 of a gram. It's 1,000th of a gram. Microgram is 100,000ths of a gram. And then kilo is greater than a gram, so it's larger than a gram. So we're going to multiply a gram by 1,000, but a milligram we're going to divide it by 1,000. Okay? We don't really do kiloliters. I've never heard of that. We usually do liters or milliliters, and milliliters is 1,000th of a liter, so we would divide that. So if you look at this here, this is saying this is gram, and this is gram here, and this is milli. So you're going to divide it by it. Okay? So hopefully that helps. This here is a guideline for metric notation. I would print this up or write it down because these are rules that will help you when you're converting. So always place the number before the abbreviation, and I give an example. 8 milliliters, not milliliters 8. Always place a 0 to the left of the decimal when the decimal fraction is less than 1. For example, deductions 0.125 milligrams, not 0.25, 1.25. You do that in math all the time, but in pharmacy, that dot can go away and you've just changed your dosing to 125 instead of 0.125, which would kill a patient. So always put that 0 there. If the 0's not there, it should be counted wrong. Okay? Never place a 0 to the right of the decimal place when you have a whole number. For example, patient weighs 11 kilograms, not 11.0 kilograms. That would also be counted wrong, because if you lost that decimal point, Now the patient weighs 110 kilograms in pharmacy, and that's a huge mistake. Always use decimals to reflect fractions when using the metric system, like 3.5 milligrams, not 3.5 milligrams. We never use fractions in that. Avoid unnecessary zeros. Here's an example, 60.02000. Why do we need those zeros there? It's just confusing. Should be written as 60.02, okay? Always think carefully when converting from subunits, when going from a smaller to larger. Make sure that the number decreases proportionately, and the same thing when you're going from larger to smaller. Make sure the number increases proportionately. So if I'm going from smaller to larger, milligrams to grams, my number should get bigger. And the same thing if I'm going from grams to milligrams, my number should get smaller. And then here, when multiplying metric values by multiples of 10, you can just move the decimal place. You don't have to actually do the math in the calculator in your head. You can just move the decimal place to the right. So when I'm multiplying by 10, if I took this number and multiplied it by 10, it's like moving this decimal over 1. So my answer would be 846.7. Same if I'm moving at 1,000, I would move my decimal 3 times because I have 3 zeros, 1, 2, 3. So if I moved it, it'd be 1, 2, 3, and my answer is 325. Now when dividing it, you're going to move it to the left. You're going to go the other. Remember, you're going from larger to smaller, so your number should become smaller. So here is an example, 74.67. If I multiply it by 100, there's 2 zeros here, so I'm going to move it 2 decimal places. So 1, 2, and I'm going to the left. 1, 2, and my answer is 0.7467. Or 1,000, 1, 2, 3, so I'm going to move it to the left. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put my dot right there, and I'm going to add zeros in my loop, and I get 0.00067. That's an easy way to convert within the metric system if you're going from grams to milligrams or milligrams to milliliters or back and forth. And when in doubt, check it out. Always get review by someone else if you're unsure of your work. So the apothecary system, this is a completely antiquated system but unfortunately is still occasionally used in pharmacy. There is a drug that I see measured in grains, which is the most common, the only measurement you need to know for the apothecary, and Synthroid. Thyroid medication can be measured in grains is one I can think of. So its primary unit is grain. Don't confuse grain with gram. GR is grain, G is gram, so don't get that confused. In the household system, which we're going to talk about next, there are 16 ounces in a pound, but in the apothecary system, there's 12 ounces in a pound. Why? I have no idea. I don't know. It's an old system. You don't need to know that. Some of the units in this system include grains, which is the only one you need to know. I wrote that down. Scruple, drams is another one. I don't know where these words came from. It's like they took stones and said, oh, that's a dram. I don't know. But the one conversion you do need to know is 1 grain is equivalent to 65 milligrams. And if you know that, you can move in the metric system. So you can go from the apothecary system to the metric system by knowing that conversion. Because once you get it into the metric system, if you have to go to grams or milligrams or micrograms, you can if you know that conversion right there. Okay? So keep that one in mind. Write that down in your notes. I will provide you with a conversion sheet, but you probably won't get to use that on the exam. So I would make sure you memorize it. And then finally, the household system. This is not real scientifically based system. This was basically used to assist patients at home to measure medications correctly, because they didn't understand what a grain was or whatnot. So these are the conversions you must know, because when we're in the pharmacy, we're going to always calculate in the metric system. But then when we give it to a patient, a lot of times we'll give it to them in the household system. So you got to move between metric to household. So these are the 4 most commonly used ones, and I would memorize them. 1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters, 1 tablespoon is 15 milliliters, 1 ounce is 30 milliliters, and 1 pint is 480 milliliters. And these are approximates, they're not exact. And that's all I have about the metric system. I'm going to do another video here shortly on how to actually do conversions before you guys do your practice. Okay, thanks.